Our topic this morning is Phoenix Rising, and Eddie Watkins Jr., who we heard in that song, in our opening song, is a sterling example of the risen Phoenix. Typical story of the Hollywood drug scene. He played for all the big Tina Turner, James Brown stuff, got involved in that, and lifted himself out of that, and is now a very successful musician, performer, music writer, and headliner at our conference here on May 31st. So if you want to see Eddie in person, you need to get registered, because he's a magnificent man.
You can build it at my house.
Eddie's already been arranged for. So most of us have heard the phrase, the phoenix rising from the ashes, yes?
Yeah.
We have a rough idea of what that is. But I didn't know very much about it, so I did some research. So the phoenix is a mythical, mystical, fabulous bird that's it's symbolic. The phoenix lives 500, well, it depends on which version of the story, but either 500 years or 1,000 years. The phoenix lives a specific number of years, and when its time comes, it builds its own funeral pyre from sweet spices. The sun ignites the funeral pyre, and the phoenix throws itself into the flames, and as it dies, it sings a magnificent and beautiful 5-note song. And the 5, in numerology and that kind of stuff, stands for expansiveness, visionary adventure, and the constructive use of freedom. 5-note song. And then the phoenix, immediately upon its death, arises again from the ashes, a new bird, ready for another 500-year or 1,000-year adventure. And the first assignment the phoenix has, it must gather the ashes of its parent and bury them in a temple in Heliopolis, which is the city of the sun. So that's what the phoenix. Now the phoenix has been used as a metaphor in the Christian mythology for the resurrection of Jesus. But it's a metaphor that we can apply many, many times in our own lives. Perhaps that phoenix is symbolizing our ability to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and start all over again. To rise from the ashes of our mistakes. Our mistakes. Bless them. We've all made mistakes, yes? Guess what? We're supposed to make mistakes. And I want to go out on a limb here and say the bigger the mistake you made, good for you. Because that's where we're here. We're here to learn. And how do we learn? By getting it wrong. Failing magnificently and making mistakes and learning from those, right? I think if anything the spiritual journey has taught me is that all the errors and illusions and calamities and misfortunes of this life, they're all part of the dance of life. It's life expressing it here. You know, we think human beings, we just want our lives to hum along nice and calm. Have you ever said, I'd like to be a cat? Sleep in the sun all day, have somebody scratch my belly, give me some food. And wouldn't that be wonderful? For about a day and a half. And then we'd start to bitch and complain that the fur coat was too hot and the sun was too hot and they scratched us in the wrong place, and I'd rather have tuna. Our lives, our human lives, are more difficult than a cat's life, right? We fall down a lot more, but we have many more opportunities to pick ourselves up and start all over again. It's the falling down that enables us to pick ourselves up. We wouldn't recognize up if we didn't have down. Do you ever trampoline? And trampolining is an Olympic sport now, and it's incredible to watch because they get height. It's got to be at least 30 feet and maybe 40 or 50. I don't know. They get up there enough to do 7 twists on the way down. And when the trampolinist is coming down, he or she doesn't just come down and doesn't resist coming down. They drive into the downness, right? They point those toes and bend those knees and get all the projection they can out of that going down so that they can go further up. So embrace the downs. You know, we resist, we tense up, we say, oh, and we can't get any value out of the downs. So maybe that phoenix represents picking ourselves up at a deeper level than just handling the physical stuff in our life. Maybe it represents emotional picking ourselves up, a spiritual picking ourselves up, even what I would call renewal. So renewal is not just solving the surface problems that we think are our problems. Renewal is actually solving the one problem that underlies all the problems that we think we have. Because ultimately there's only one problem, and that is a belief in separation. That's the problem at the basis of everything that we don't want to experience. We think of ourselves as separate. Come on in. That's good. So, if we think our problem is our job that we don't like or a relationship that we don't like, it's really not. What we need to look at is, what am I taking into my job? What am I taking into my relationship? So we're going into the relationship as there's my boss and there's me, and there's my spouse and there's me, and we have to, we need to realize that we're all one here. And when we approach our job with how are my boss and I making this business unfold, then it's a whole thing. So the problem that underlies all our problems is a belief in separation. We think we're different from each other, and we think then we have to be opposed to each other, and one of us has to be right, and therefore the other one of us has to be wrong. So that's what renewal is to me. And another word is transformation. There's a great quote in the Bible that uses these words, but may ye be transformed through the renewal of your mind. Oh my God, isn't that what we're teaching here? Interesting though, I have a concordance for the Science of Mind text, and that's, I can take any word and wonder what Ernest Holmes had to say about it, and look it up, and it tells me every page and every paragraph where Ernest Holmes mentions that word. He never mentions the word transformation, but it's in common usage now, isn't it, in this spiritual path. We say, I've been transformed by this teaching. And I have, yes. Transformed means a significant change, not just a little change, but a significant change in the very function or nature. My very nature is significantly changed, or my function is significantly changed. So spring is the time when the earth is transformed. There's significant changes, been resting, hibernating, even decay over the winter. And then in the spring comes this incredible new growth out of the decay. That's a significant change in the very nature, isn't it? That's transformation. So it's spring. It's time for a change. Some of us don't like changes so much, do we? But then there's another biblical quote. It says, and it came to pass. It did not come to stay. It came to pass. Everything passes. Everything changes because it's supposed to change. Spring is supposed to come and winter is supposed to come. And sometimes we need to experience a winter in our lives to prepare us for our springs. Yeah? So when we're changing, like the phoenix, the first thing we need to do, again, the phoenix needs to take the ashes of its parents, of its past, and bury them in the temple. So our change involves taking the ashes of our past and burying them. So burying means gone forever, done, right? In the temple, in an honorable place, a place of honor. So that's what we need to do with our past, is bury it in a place of honor. No matter how difficult or painful or shameful or embarrassing it might have been, we need to honor our past, because our past and everything that happened in our past has brought us right to this moment of now. And this moment of now is the magic moment where we have choice. We have the choice to create our future. And without our past, we couldn't have got here. So we honor everything. And then we release the past in order that we might live more fully in the present. Honor it and let it go. Spring can't come until winter is gone. If we're clinging to our past, Our metaphysical arms are busy and we can't open them to receive the future. And when we cling to our past, we attach that energy to us, and it actually gets into our body, into our spirit and our soul. And we carry the energy of the past with us. So we need to release it no matter how bad it was. We need to let it go. You know, they were talking about a conference about traditional way of doing things, the modern way of doing things, and the postmodern way of doing things. And the traditional one was all about, conflict and you against me. Modern is where most people are going now. It's all about being the best me I can, getting the most for myself I can, being as successful as I can. And then postmodern is going beyond that. That the reason for being the best me I can is because I'm part of you and my world, and I want to make it all better. Contribute to the evolution and the growth. So the traditional way was we wanted revenge. We wanted to make people wrong, and we wanted to set it right, and we wanted revenge, justice. Right? The modern way is saying, well, I can let go of the revenge thing, but I need closure. I need completion. And to me, that's just really a euphemism for saying the same thing. I still want to make somebody wrong. The postmodern way is, I can just let it go, knowing that life is unfolding the way it should, and whatever needs to be justified or corrected will get corrected, and it's not up to me to do it. That's pretty tough to do in our society, isn't it? It takes a big courage. So we can prepare for spring in our lives, but we don't know what causes spring to happen. We know that in the spring, seeds germinate and grow and create incredibly beautiful flowers. We know that's a process we can rely on. We don't really know what that process is, but we know that it is, and therefore we use it in our gardens. Well, that process is also available for all other areas of our lives. We say the earth is dormant and hibernating and even decaying, and yet out of that decay comes beautiful flowers. Well, it could be we're experiencing disease in our bodies that seems like a decay. But within that decay is perfect health. Out of that can grow the perfect body, using the same power. The withering death of poverty, within that very poverty is the abundance, the potential to grow out of that. What does it? That same invisible power that grows the flowers. We don't know how it works. We don't know why it works. We don't know what to call it, but we know that it works. We know that it works. And so when we put our faith in that power, we don't have to explain it. We just know that it works. Because life is the law of life, to be ever upward, expanding, forever growing, forever rising from the ashes. And renewal and transformation, and also immortality is what the phoenix stands for. Our immortality, yours and mine. Because, these lives we're living here on planet Earth, they're going to end. They're going to end. And then in some fashion, I don't know how, but I know that, we're going to rise up from that, and we're going to go on for another 500 years or 1,000 years or whatever. You didn't really think this life is all there is, did you? It doesn't make any sense, does it? So, when it comes to the rest of life, whatever it is, we don't really know what, but we know that. Because life is life. And life is what we are, is forever expanding, forever growing, moving onward and upward, unfolding and blossoming in an endless spiral. There's something called spiral dynamics now. I don't know if it's sort of a transpersonal psychology evolution thing that we go through stages spiraling upward, and then it goes into different colors. It kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs as we raise in our. And really, sometimes it looks like our world is spiraling downward, but overall, I think it's spiraling upward. Life is moving forward. The species is evolving. It's improving. It's becoming physically more efficient. Look Look at what our athletes can do now. Physically more efficient, intellectually more proficient, and spiritually more aware overall as a species, right? Because that's the nature of life, is to progress, to move, always changing upwards, always moving upward. So sometimes it's difficult to remember this when we're experiencing trouble. We know that our situation will always change. Everything's always changing, right? And overall, it's improving. It's moving forward, it's moving upward. Sure, there's still ups and downs in our lives, yes? But to me, it's been kind of like this. And suddenly you realize that your downs are upper than your uppers used to be, right? So we're spiraling up, we're going up there. And that's true for us as a species, as well as individuals. So, as life unfolds, what do we get to do about it? Well, we can just kind of be a twig in the river of life, getting knocked about and hit up against the stones and maybe knocked into a corner behind a log where we get stuck. Or we can kind of step on it, align with it. Quite a few years ago, I moved to a town called Soot, which is about 40 minutes outside Victoria. And at that time, it was a village of about 5,000 people, mostly fishermen and loggers. And a few people worked in Victoria. And so there was a bus in the morning, a bus out at night. And there were no bus stops. If you wanted to get on the bus, you stood on the highway, you waved to say, "Hey bus, I'm here and I want to come with you." And I figured life's kind of like that. We can stand on the side of the highway and say, "Hey life, I'm here and I want to come with you." You know what? And life stops right there, right where you are, and you get on and life carries on. Now when I used to stand on the highway at 10 after 8 and wait for the bus, which I knew was going to come along about 20 past 8, it was quite a while there while I'm standing there. I can't see the bus, but I know it's coming. And it always came, usually pretty close to on time. And it's kind of like that with life. We need to stand there knowing that life is coming. And we're ready to get on that bus of life and step up. See, it's like the spiral. Life is kind of like a circle. If you stay on the same plane, if you stay flat, you just go round and round and you see the same things. You see summer, winter, fall, and you see, marriage, divorce, all that stuff. But if you can just tip your life up a little bit on an angle, then instead of a circle, you're creating a spiral, which is always climbing. And sure, you keep coming by the same things, but you keep seeing them from a higher level. And that's what we need to do in order to get on that upward spiral of life. So, miraculous things can happen when we're just aligned and open to the opportunities, when we're just prepared, watching for the bus, and ready to get on it. So sometimes when I sit down to do my prayer work in the morning, I go through the conscious unification with all there is, and knowing that I can kind of direct the power of life, and that way is how I help create, and that's how I use it, and that's how it serves. I assist it to work. And then other times, I just sit there and I know. I just kind of tell God what. I say, for today, God, I will have a physical healing for this person and a wonderful job opportunity for that person and a loving relationship for this person. And I just know it's done. It's kind of like the difference between cooking dinner and going to a restaurant. So say you want chicken quesadilla and you're going to cook it at home. So you got to cook the chicken, chop the vegetables, and shred the cheese and make the tortilla. When you go to a restaurant, you just say, "I'll have chicken quesadilla." And you sit there for 10 minutes and it's going to show up on your plate. So which way do you want to do it? It's kind of choice. So after I say what it is I'll have, sometimes I just let it go and I know it's going to show up. And other times I get shown what needs to be done in order to have it show up. You know what I'm saying? So we just listen. So after I finish my prayer treatment, you can talk to God. Then I usually go into meditation and listen to God. So what is it I need to do in order to have this show up? So sometimes we have to do some homework. So I, are the practitioners, we can do prayer treatment for you. But you might have to do homework. And then homework could involve forgiveness. It might be uncovering the past, releasing the past, uncovering those thought patterns that have led us to the position we're in now, and changing those thought patterns. What's our little slogan? Say it with me. Change your thinking, change your life. Actually, I could have just stood up and said that instead of all this. So when we release all those old thought patterns, the history and the hurts that have been hanging on to them, we release a great energy that allows us to create the future and to tap into that. So individually and as a species, we are evolving. Children, oh my goodness, children are so much smarter these days than they used to be, right? And they're going through experiences, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, through phases in their lives. And then even as adults, we still keep going through phases in our lives. As a species, we keep going through phases. We are evolving continually. And you know, we're the first generation really that's able to consciously participate in our evolution, to choose what direction the species is going to go in. Collectively, we can do that. So, when we know that we are one with all that is, and that we influence all that is by the way we be, we are freed. So meditation, of course, is a great way to become conscious of what it is that's presented to us in order to renew ourselves and our world. And so again, I usually follow my prayers with meditation, and usually when I get direction, it's not something that I have to go out and do, something big that I have to change. It's usually just that I need to look at something in a new way, to rethink the way I look at things, to let go of my judgments about how it's supposed to be and whether this is it or not. You know, I used to almost have a slogan called "This isn't it." You know lots of people who live their lives that way, don't you? This isn't it. So I sometimes simply need to see things in a different way, to re-examine what I consider important. What are my values? What am I prepared to commit to? What's really the purpose of my life? And again, when I'm truly willing to look at that, and willing to adopt a significant change in my purpose or function, my very reality, I'm transformed. So transformation is always available to us. We can always be the phoenix, rising and flying and starting a whole new episode of life at any time. We simply need to throw ourselves into that flame of surrender and rise up and fly. Namaste.